Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Orlando. Sorry we did not treat you to our finest of weather. You just missed it by just a couple of days. It was in the 80s just a few days ago, but we will try to make up for it with our southern hospitality and what should be an absolutely great show of new products and some new ideas. I'm glad that you have selected this session as the first one to come to, because as I'm doing sessions for you today and tomorrow, a lot of the items that I am sharing with you in this first session lead to those in the next 2 days, ideas that I'll be sharing with you that you say, ooh, this is something I need to concentrate on, then most definitely you'll see a session later on we're going to do that will help you. Well, years ago, sporting goods was so much easier. Selling stuff for this industry was much, much easier. This picture I show you is in my grandfather's store, and I think the old adage my family told me was, good merchandise, well displayed, and reasonably priced would always sell well. That's all you had to do, was simply put things in front of people and you would have plenty of sales. That was true at that point in time. That's not true at this point. Things are changing. Who would have ever thought of catalogs? Who would have ever thought of the internet and the challenges, as well as all the things that so many people in the industry, all I wanted to do was be a teaching pro. I had no interest whatsoever in learning all these other things, but if I'd like to be in business next year and the next year, these are things I had better start paying attention to. Well, my experience is I grew up in retailing. The gentleman in the back was asking me, where did I come from? I come from Fort Smith, Arkansas. It's my home. I've lived here in Florida for 30 years, but I was just a retail kid. My great-grandfather started the first of our family stores back in 1922. They morphed from one kind of a store to another. We have sold everything there is under the sun over the years, and I was very fortunate, as I have found out in later years, to have come from a family that were tremendous students of retailing. Understanding how and why things happening, and then as they play out, knowing how to do them even more, or the certain things as to, well, let's not do that again. And I happen to be the one that, as my high school English teacher was amazed that I even passed high school English, I turned out to be the one that all of a sudden got off on a kick of starting to write books about the concept of, because I found that there were a lot of people who have gotten into business and they just haven't quite got the knack for it. They may have the passion for it, but they haven't quite got the knack. Well, while we're together today, I have hopefully gotten out to every one of you one of these postcards. All right? I know a couple of you got in late, and if you did, I'll have to ask you to kind of come closer to get them, because as we are taping this to this broadcast, I need to take and stay right in this area. Otherwise, the camera is going to lose me, and someone's not going to be able to see what's going on. Here's the idea. You have lots of classes to go to today. My gosh, there are so many classes. How about I'll just hand them and you can take care of the rest of the crowd. There's so many classes here that, you know, by the time the last class is held, if I asked you to make a list of the classes you went to, you couldn't even make it that. So how could I expect, if you couldn't make the list of classes, how could I ever expect you to retain the stuff? They tell us that in a learning situation, if you do not do something with what you've heard within 72 hours of having heard it, the odds are you do nothing at all with the information. I don't want to see that happen. So what I invite you to do is take the postcard I gave you. This is a learning tool for you, not for me. This is a postcard that I would suggest you flip it over to the appropriate side and address this card to yourself. You may want to send it home, you may want to send it to work, but flip it over, grab your pen, address the postcard to yourself. While we're together this morning, you will see some things that I need to pay attention to this, I need to do this. And when you find that particular item, in addition to making notations on the presentation notes, the one with the green cover to it, which a good chance might get lost while you're here at the show, the idea behind the postcard, if you put it down on the postcard and then I take the postcard from you when the session's over, the postcard goes home with me. Okay, now it's mine, and I have never lost a postcard yet. And I will hold on to your postcard for 2 weeks, give you a chance to go back, get back to work doing what you normally do. Somewhere during the next 2 weeks, I will read your card. I will take out a pen that writes with green ink. I use green. It's the color of money. Money is what we're here to talk about making. How can I make some more? I will add a notation or two to your postcard, and then I'm going to mail it back to you 2 weeks from today. I will pay the postage to you no matter where you live in the world, mail that thing back to you, And what we have found is very often is that when you see the postcard come across your desk in 2 weeks, it's like, oh yeah, that's something I knew I was supposed to do. Oh yeah, I want to pay attention to this. I need to do something. Well, our topic today is entitled What It Takes to Be a 5-Star Business. When we look out in publications, we see things like this magazine right here and this newsletter right here. This happens to be coming from USA Today. I just ripped off the cover page. But this picture here talks about rating hotels and restaurants and day spas on a 5-star basis. How do they do? This magazine that comes out does it for automobiles and quite a few other products. So, just what is it that makes up to be a 5-star business? They have ratings. Now, oddly enough, of all the different things that they rate, we find several things. In reading this report, of the hotels, of the day spas, and of the restaurants that have earned the 5-star distinction, there is no hotel that has a 5-star restaurant. There is no hotel that has a 5-star day spa. Of all the ways that they rate people, there are none of the 3, of which 2 of them are in the same facility. They can get one, they can't get the other 2. The longest streak of any business to maintain a 5-star rating has been 9 years. They come, they go, they come back again, they gain it, they lose it, back and forth. So what would we think about a 5-star? Look at these points. What would you think? When you envision something, it could even be a product that you're going to buy, and you think of it as being a 5-star something, a car, a hotel stay. What do you think it should be as a 5-star? And from our standpoint, what about the profitability? If you envision someone who had a 5-star business, who sold a 5-star product, wouldn't you think they're making good money off of it? We would think so. And what would you think about the price? And oddly enough, you'll think about the price last. But you'll think about all the good points of the 5-star item. So what I have found that Consumer Reports has got, USA Today has got, but when it comes to running a business, I can't find it. I cannot find anything that rates them. So in all the studying that I've done, I thought, well, someone's got to do it. And here's who I think ought to do it. Yourself. You ought to rate your own. I'm going to share with you this morning the criteria. This is a take-home. This is a don't lose this green piece of paper that you've got there. This is a take-home and do the exercise. What I'm simply going to do is outline for you what I see are the perspectives of this particular point of being a 5-star business. I'm going to give you some suggested reading, a couple of books on each of the particular points, each of the 10 points that we're going to cover. And then I'm going to suggest that you go through a multi-step exercise. You'll see on each of the presentation note pages there are 5 stars. I'm inviting you to sit down at some point in time and color in the stars. How many do you rate? And then there are a couple of questions asked, which are, so what do you need to do? What would you need to do if this is an area where you decide you want to get better? And as you decide you want to get better, then what would be the goals? And very importantly, what's the timeline that you're going to set it for? Just to write it down means nothing. It does nothing for you. It fulfills that old joke about there were 3 birds sitting on a fence and one bird decided to fly off. How many birds are left? Anybody know? 3 birds, and the answer is 3. 3 birds were sitting on a fence, one bird decided to fly off. How many birds are left? And the answer is 3. He decided to fly off. He didn't do anything about it. He just decided to fly off. And that's what happens with good intentions. They simply pile up. What we're looking for is setting a deadline. And if somehow or another you miss the deadline, that's okay. I've got items on my list that have a deadline that has passed numerous times in the last 2 years. And they have a deadline that will come up somewhere in this calendar year, and hopefully I will get it. And if I don't, I'm at least closer to it. And if I've missed it, then it will get a deadline set for sometime next year. But the idea is at least I'm striving. So let's look at feature number 1. A 5-star business has an image. And the question I ask you, do you give a clear image to your customers as to who you are and what you're doing? Let me give you an example. Everything about your business speaks. your bags, when I buy something, what you put product in. Your website conveys a message to me. The attire that people wear as you are waiting on customers. The shelving, the displays, the building, the advertising. Let me give you a couple of quick points. We know that 53% of the public has made up their strongest perception about your business based upon what they see from the outside. You think that you are selling once they come in the door, and I'm telling you, no, the biggest part of the selling is already over with, based upon the image that they get from outside. With regards to bags, let's look at this scenario. If we had the time this morning, I would pull one of those big buses up out front, and I would ask all of you to get in the mall, and into the bus and go with me up to the mall. And as we walk into the mall up the road here, we're going to get out and we're going to walk around, and we're going to see people carrying two items. See if you can help me identify them. The bag has pink stripes on it. What store's in the mall? Victoria's Secret. I see people walking around with coffee cups. I had him. You already knew it was Starbucks. And if you had seen a white coffee cup with a green circle on the side, you would know there's a Starbucks. Do you see how they have an identity that customers know exactly who they are? Have you not walked through a mall and said, oh my gosh, look, I know there's a Starbucks here? The investment of having a bag that conveys a message is very inexpensive. If you go look up on our website, on our links page, there is a link to a couple of companies that's all they do is produce packaging. Very affordable packaging for what is it when someone buys something from you. So that they are getting a message as to here's who you are. And yet I still see people out there using, I got one yesterday in a place, that white plastic bag with red lettering on the side. It says, thank you, thank you, thank you. And that clincher, have a nice day. Okay, now where I come from, the drug users now use that bag. I mean, it's that common. You have no idea who's using it, what it's for. Everyone has got it. It doesn't tell them who I am or where I am, and this is important. I need everything they see to tell me my identity. If I were to come into your shop, whether you are on property, whether you are off property, in a mall, in a shopping center, whatever you may be, if I were to bring a person blindfolded into your business, take off the blindfold, my question is, how long would it take before they knew where they were? Okay, and I don't mean golf shop. How long would it be before they knew they were in your place? What's going to convey the message? Or am I going to see a collection from the show of various manufacturers' displays? Now, manufacturers produce these gorgeous displays for a simple reason. It is an anticipation of as our failure as merchants. Because we're going to do a poor job of selling them on that particular brand, and what they're hoping for is that that customer will at least remember the name brand and go looking for it in someone else's shop. We don't want to see that happen. I want them to think that I am the one and the only place that you can buy that particular piece of clothing, that club, that ball. I'm the only place in my whole community that's got it. And the displays, the shelving, everything needs to scream out to them my name. And it needs to tell them my phone number. And it needs to tell them my website. Everyone needs to see something all about me. If a customer starts to write a check to you, have they ever asked you, who do I make the check payable to? Anybody ever gotten that from a customer? All right, now in my store, I would do things like this. I'd hear them saying that to somebody, and I'd walk out the front door, and I'd look up the outside of the building, and I'd go, $6,000. I spent $6,000 to put my name up there. I'd walk up to the front door, and I'd see how we had put it on the glass, and I'd go, and that was another few $100s. I've got my name, and they have no idea who I am. And I would say, I have idiots for customers. And then I realized, no, it's not them who was wrong, it's me. See, I haven't conveyed the message to them to tell them, here's who I am. Everywhere they look, they need to see, this is you. This is uniquely you. And that you are different from everybody else out there. So a couple of books I would suggest you read is Why We Buy by Paco Underhill. Paco has a second book along the same topic. It is entitled The Call of the Mall. Now, if you go to get either of these books, particularly the second one, do not be afraid of it. When you say, I'm not in a mall, that's okay. The concepts still apply. Whenever someone is buying, the concept still applies. And the second book is entitled, Stop Talking, Start Doing Retail Branding. Branding your name, your image, the message to everyone that comes in. Your go-home assignment for this one, as it will be for the other 9, is how many stars do you rate? Scale of 1 to 5, how many stars do you rate? And the second question that you will do is say, so what do you need to do? How many stars do you rate? What do you need to do? And what's the deadline by which you will get this done? That is your go-home assignment. Point number 2 says a 5-star business has a very well-defined marketing position. Do you know who your best customers are? Do you know, can you describe to me the kind of customer who spends the most money with you? That's the person I want to target. As I sell, am I selling what we call 5 to 1 or 1 to 5? And the scenario goes like this. Are you selling 5 things to one customer, or are you selling the one item to 5 different customers? The easier sale is 5 items to one customer. Not selling one thing to 5 different people. I'd rather sell 5 things to one customer. I want to sell him the bag. I want to sell him the clubs. I want to sell him the balls. I want to sell him the shoes. I want to sell him everything that there is because I want to hone in on my ideal customer. I don't want to be the person that says, I got a great selection of clubs. I've got a club for everyone out there that plays golf. But when it comes to clothing or when it comes to shoes or it comes to whatever else it may be, you got to go see somebody else. Because what you're doing at that point, you're sending the customer back out into the world. And as you send them back out in the world to see the competition, they're going to find a competitor who has honed in on them very clearly. And they're going to say, my kind of store. These people have got everything I need. Do you look outside the usual trade area? If you are advertising in the media, quite often what you find yourself doing with television, radio, and newspaper is they are taking a map, putting a dot on it, and drawing a circle around it to say, here's where your customers come from. Customers do not live in circles. They do not live in radiuses. They live in pockets. Our marketplace is defined by unique things such as bridges, malls, expressways, interstates, railroad tracks. All kinds of things separate. A lake, a pond, can separate a community, and it causes divisions of where what we know is I want this pocket, and I want that pocket, and I want that pocket. Not just everyone within a 5-mile radius. Am I always looking for, and I hope that's the reason why you're here at the show, am I looking for something new? Am I looking for something new, whether it be a product or a service? Am I always looking for something new that I can take and sell to my customers? This is a unique business. It lives because of what's new. What's the most exciting item? What's the thing that's going to improve my game? Are you always looking for what is? And when I see people at the end of the show and I'll say, how was the show? What did you see that was new? Oh, nothing new. I just saw the same old usual stuff. And I will say, how did you find your way around the show? I go, how did you find your way up and down the aisles? You go, what do you mean? I said, well, obviously you had a blindfold on. You had to have had a blindfold on because if you have gone up and down the aisles of this whole show and looked around and you've seen absolutely nothing new, you had to have been blindfolded. There's lots of new things. You have to constantly look and the way to present it to the customer that this is what's new, this is what you've got to have, this is what's going to improve your game. So books I would suggest you read. Predatory Marketing by Reese and Trout. This is an old 1980s book. I realize that the examples that they give in the book talk about things like American Motors and how American Motors was so uniquely niched as a business because they made that unique vehicle that no one else was ever going to copy. That's how, according to the book, they would say this company will continue to survive. Because they happened to be the makers of the Jeep, and there was only a very limited market for any kind of vehicle that resembled a Jeep type of thing. But in the 1980s when this happened, it was very appropriate. Predatory Marketing by C. Brett Beamer will enlighten you a lot about knowing how to identify particular customers. So how many stars do you rate? What do you need to do? And what will be your deadlines to get it done. For point number 2, that is also your take-home, that's your go-home assignment for you. Point number 3 says, our business uses technology to the absolute fullest. This business, like any other business, it's a game. The game, you may think, goes out when I tee off on the first hole. That is not true. The game starts when the customer even considers the idea of playing golf. Now that's the game. That's where we're playing the game, is when the person is first exposed to the idea of playing golf. That's the game I want to be good at. And I'm looking for every advantage. Just like a person walks into you and asks you for every teaching advantage if you are a teaching pro, as a merchant they're asking you for every possible little thing you could share with them that will help improve their game. I'm doing the same thing as from a merchant standpoint, from a business standpoint. I'm looking for every possible thing that can improve it, my chances, that is, to take and make money from that customer walking and do. How do I wrap my arms around their wallet? So what can I do? I need to look at this type of information, and hopefully most everyone here, well actually hopefully everyone is computerized. It just doesn't cost. Years ago, I could see where people were thinking about computerizing their business. When we bought our first computer and spent $30,000 for the thing, I can see that's a decision you sit down and think about for a few minutes. Well, actually, it was a few years. But with the cost of hardware and software today, this is a no-brainer. I need to know from things like my point of sale. I need to know things like department and fine line reports. I need to know what it is of every area that's making money. I mean, for example, if you sell shorts and slacks, I bet if you look at the categorization of those items, what you will find is either slacks or shorts has a higher gross margin. And for the life of me, I can't understand why. Why should one have a higher gross margin than the other? I don't see any logic behind it. I mean, there's a different price, but a gross margin. So as you look at that and say, well, I think the guy's got a point. Why should one have a lesser gross margin? So let's take the one with the lesser gross margin and let's raise it up. And let's see what happens. What does that do for sales? Hats and visors. Why would one have a different gross margin than another? Short sleeve versus long sleeve. Why would one have a different gross margin? If I begin to study things, I can see where there are other ways to make more money. I learned things from my sales floor design. For example, as you read some of the books I suggested to you, you will find that people have a tendency, in the countries where people drive on the right side of the road, that as they walk into a business, they look to the right, they walk to the right. This would help you in designing how to lay merchandise out for people. If you're in a country where people are going to look right and walk right, the number one item that you want the person to see as they walk in the door, they're going to do this. What's here? What do I want them to look at? And someone says, well, that's where I have my cash register. And my comment is, that's okay if you sell cash registers. But if you're not selling cash registers, it needs to go somewhere else. The cash register in a store layout is the least important component there. You could put the money in your pocket. What's important is taking and having the merchandise in the right format so that people will see it best. So sales floor design. How do I merchandise? Which areas are making me the most money? So maybe I need to emphasize that part even more as compared to something else. My staffing. What time of day, what day of the week do people come in and do business? I've long contended that if we were to walk in a mall, other than some poor service, there are a couple of things that will help us identify what's going on. For one, you will know that it's close to closing time because you'll hear the vacuum cleaner starting. Walk in the mall about 8:30 at night, sure enough, all the vacuum cleaners start up. Why? Because they're looking to go home. You'll also find that in many businesses where they have multiple people working there, the best employees get the best hours. The best salespeople have been around for years, so we give them the most favorable hours. Well, what if we find through our technology that we sold more later in the afternoon? Shouldn't I have my best salespeople there at that time? And my least qualified people ought to be sprinkled throughout the day? As compared to saying, let the best people have the shift they want. And if you run a shop and it's open at night, what you do is you let all the leftovers, all the kids, run it at night. There's a lot of good customers coming at that time of day. books to read: The Strategy of Pricing for Profit and Internet Marketing on Less Than $500. We just completed looking through a survey that's talked about how we sell. And what was very enlightening was what they refer to as tri-channel retailers, saying that while you may do X amount of business because you are a brick and mortar type format, if you add to that an internet presence, the customer who was buying from you only physically in the store now buys this much more money. It ran something like another $60, $70 a month because you had the internet and offered the ability for them to buy from the internet. And then if you became a tri-channel retailer and offered to them a catalog, how all three channels of buying offered to your customer ties them up all the more to do more business with you. Again, see, as I find this information, I learn this, that tells me how to play the game. That tells me how to engage that customer. That tells me how to get more of that customer's money, because now I know how it is that they're going to buy. So how many stars will you rate as you do exercise number 3? How many stars do you rate? What do you need to do? And what would be your deadlines? And if you're looking at something like the internet, it needs to be more than just the concept of saying, well, oh yeah, I've got a website. The question is going to be, how much you sell it off the website? Well, we're not. It's just kind of a website to tell you where we are. Trust me, you're missing a lot of business. You're missing a lot of business by not having a website that sells for you. All right, let's go to point number 4. A 5-star business has sound financial management plans and tools. There is no business like show business, but there are a lot of businesses like accounting. Well, there's an old famous philosopher who said that. His name is David Letterman, and this is true. Every business, and this is definitely one of them, is a whole lot like accounting. My biggest concern are for people who own and run a business and think that there are a couple of things that are going to get them by. From the standpoint of a person who is a teaching pro, thinking that that is the gravy train to making money, and having the pro shop is just extra money. If you are a teaching pro, here's my point, folks. You get in a car wreck, you break a leg, you break an arm, even if you've got disability insurance and it's not kicking in for 90 days, what are you going to live on between now and then? What's going to make your living for you at that point? Because you can't go out and teach. If, on the other hand, you're running a successful business, it continues to make money. That's one of the reasons why my father encouraged me to get into retailing. He says, it's not like being a doctor or a lawyer. When they take off, the income train stops. You run a store and you run it right, it continues to make money whether you are there or whether you are not there. From the standpoint of people who are here today and you are running shops that are off property in a strip center, in a mall, whatever it may be, we have to understand these aspects. You cannot leave it to an accountant and say, I don't have to take care of that. I just got to learn what's going on in the industry. My accountant takes care of that. There is no one who's going to take care of your money for you. Nobody. It's your money. You have to learn these things. What do you need to look at? You need to understand all of these items right here. You need to understand what a budget is. We're here early January. You need to have a budget, which is basically, here's what I think is going to happen for each one of the next 12 months during the course of this year, for each and every item. I mean, for every line expense, for your sources of income, and here's how much I think I'm going to make. Because if I were to ask you, what's 2000 look like? And you say, I think it's going to be a good year. Well, define for me what's a good year. What's the number? Well, I don't know. Well, then how do you know if it's good? I mean, I'll know if it's good when I get to the end. Why shouldn't we know if it's good or not when we get to the end of January to see how well January has done? What's it looking like as we go forward? A cash flow chart, well, let me say this one real simple. For those of you who are utilizing the postcard, grab your postcard right now, and if you do not have a cash flow chart, this is the number one thing you need to write down on the postcard. And let me tell you what a cash flow chart is. If you had a cash flow chart working today, it would tell you how much money was sitting in your checking account for December 31st of this year. It would tell you how much inventory you had sitting on the shelf for December 31st of this year, and it would answer those two questions for each and every one of those months between now and then. You can know the answer to those two questions for every month today if you had a working cash flow chart. If you do not have a working cash flow chart, I would suggest you ask your accountant why not. And any answer they give you is wrong. Any answer. The only acceptable answer is, I am sorry, please forgive me, and I will do it right away. If you don't get that answer, here's what you need to say to the accountant. 2 words. You're fired. And I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding at all about that. If your accountant is not having you with a working cash flow chart that is projectionary for 12 months, you do not have a good accountant. You need to understand this. We need to look at open to buy. Open to buy planning is making a pattern that says, because we study what's happened in the past, when is inventory coming and when does it need to go away? I mean, quick question. You're here in the South right now. We're coming very quickly to the point in time for us Southern people that we're going to start getting rid of long sleeve shirts. And we're going into short sleeves. It needs to go, and it needs to go out the door with some customer. It does not need to go in a box and set and back waiting for someone next November. And it needs to go out the door at full price. I do not need to take and be looking at it saying, oh my gosh, look how much I've got, so I need to be marking it down to half price trying to get my money out of it. And Open to Buy calculates that for you. If you do not use Open to Buy calculator at this point, I would invite you to go up to our website, profitsplus.org, and grab the Open to Buy calculator. It's absolutely free. There's an article that tells you how Open to Buy works. There's also a chart that will tell you here's how to create an Open to Buy calculator, and using Microsoft Excel, there is a free Open to Buy calculator that you can help yourself too. You need an accountant that does more than prepare your financial statements for you. This person needs to understand what it is that you do. You need to have a banker who's on your side. You need to either have a mentor or be a mentor. Someone from across the country, across the world that you can share ideas with. Someone who has been through the ropes before and can tell you ahead of time whether or not that rope is the foothold or whether or not that rope is the noose. Because they've been down the pike. With regards to an advisory board, here would be my suggestion. In your town, find the person who runs the best hardware store, the best pharmacy, the best clothing store, the best shoe store, maybe the best dry cleaning, several different businesses. Find the people who run the best and say, folks, let's get together once a month, a Dutch treat breakfast, and let's simply exchange ideas. Every aspect of selling has something they do very, very good that could be applied from one industry over to another. I'll give you an example. Think about people who are pharmacists and people who repair lawnmowers. Now, their businesses are almost like twins in the sense that they have product in the front and they do the service in the back. And what they learn because of that is that the customer walks in the door coming to get a part to fix a lawnmower, a chainsaw, string trimmer, a person bringing in a piece of paper to get a prescription filled, mentally has blinders on and can see nothing for sale because they're on a mission. They go to the back, they see the person in the back, take care of their business, and when they turn around to come back to the store, the mental blinders are off. The question I ask people is this one. Is your store arranged from front to back and back to front? Is it just attractive as I walk through the back to the front? Now you say, all right, I see the similarity there. So I come in and I'm going to play a round of golf at your course, and where I sign in, is it at the back? It should be, to draw me all the way through. And I'm mentally on a mission to sign in, and I see none of the clothing, none of the clubs, none of the balls that you have for sale, but as soon as I have signed in, and I've got 20 minutes to kill, as the blinders come off, now I can see the merchandise. See, if I hadn't told you that, and you had an advisory board and had a lawnmower repair guy on there, and you had a pharmacist and they were really sharp, then that'd be the person to tell you that little trick. And there's a whole lot more of those little tricks out there. You just got to find those people. Do you have a long-range plan? What's the retirement plan? And you're thinking, I am too young for this. I mean, that is like so far off in the future. Here's the idea, the comparison. When they play a Super Bowl next week, do you think they're going to play 3/4 of the game and then stop and figure out how to keep score? Do they figure out at that point how they're going to walk off the field? Or do they instead have a game plan that starts at the beginning? See, you may decide that you want to, if you're an off-property place, I just want to close the doors when I'm ready to retire. I want to sell it to my children. I want to sell it to a third party. you may have several different ways as to how you want to get out. You need to be thinking about that today, because that's going to define how you're going to play the game over the next few years. Can you change your mind? Absolutely. But there needs to be a plan to say, this is how I think I want to get out of here, and I am working towards that pattern of how I'm going to get out of here. I would also suggest you go up and visit this page on our website. With regards to understanding the financials, I realize it's an embarrassing situation to have to go up and ask an accountant to share with you a lot of this information. This one page, our financial ratio calculator, will teach you 20 different financial ratios, help you understand them, because it will say, give to this little calculator your financial statement from your shop. Punch in your numbers, and it will say, you're wondering what your current ratio is because your accountant has said this is what it is, and you have been too embarrassed to ask the accountant. This will tell you how it is calculated, what number plus what number divided by what number, but it will also explain to you, here's what this number means and why you would want this number to be and why you would want this number to change and just which way do you want the number to change. It will do that for 20 different statistics. It's free. I would invite you to go up and utilize it. A couple of books to read. Effective Succession Planning. Now let me forewarn you, this is a very thorough book. If I were 22, I might start reading it now and hope I'd get through it. It is thick. It's not a real exciting book, but it's got a lot of good information into it. It's considered to be one of the Bibles for business succession planning. And the other one's the book that I wrote, which was Easy Cash Flow, because as you can see, I'm very passionate about the concept, knowing that everyone must have this. How many stars do you currently rate in your business, and what do you need to do, and what would be your deadlines? I've told you a couple of them point blank. The rest of them are up to you. Point number 5, they learn to promote with a business. I know that half of my advertising does not work. I just don't know which half it is. That was John Wanamaker of Wanamaker Department Stores who made that comment. Is that not true? Have you not placed an ad in a paper for something and got no results and turned around and put the same ad in the paper a week later and got tremendous results and wonder what happened? Anybody ever been in that boat? I mean, I've wondered too. I don't know what the answer is. I just have had that same wonderment. So understand this one. Advertising is trying to get rid of what you got. Advertising is when you look around the store physically and see merchandise and decide, let's put this on sale, let's put that on sale. Promoting, on the other hand, is understanding this. No matter how far north from here you come from, spring is coming eventually. People will wear shorts again. They will wear short sleeve shirts. You know that. You know they'll be back to play golf. And what you need to be doing is planning by what you're going to be purchasing today, telling folks, hey, I have an annual grand opening sale. I have this annual grand opening sale at my shop, and I need deals. I need specials. What have you got for me? I need something from you. And you ask that of every single vendor. What have you got? I need something that I can promote with later on in the spring. It requires that you set up a budget. It requires that you write out a plan. And it means that you have to take and follow up with all the details on this one. You can go up. Here's another one that we've put up on the website. We did write a couple of the books on the topic on how to promote. But we have a thing on our website called the AMP Calculator. And it will walk you through planning a year's worth of advertising. Now, a reason why you want to look at advertising plans for a year is that if you buy media in bulk, a year's worth at a time, you will commonly find about a 30% savings as compared to buying it on a week-to-week or a month-to-month basis. So at that point, you either save 30% or you wind up getting 30% more advertising. But by making a plan and saying, this is where I'm going to go, yes, you can adjust it, but this is where I plan to go. Books to read: To Catch a Mouse, Make a Noise Like a Cheese, and the one that everyone ought to understand, why people buy things that they don't need. Isn't that what we want? Do we have anything that they really need? No, we have things that they want. Why is it that people buy things they don't need? This is a good book to read. How many stars do you rate? What do you need to do, and when would you have it done? Let's go on to point number 6. The 5-star business is constantly being improved. Even if you are on the right track, you'll get run over if you just stand there, according to Will Rogers. Now think about that. Isn't that true? Using the train analogy, even if you're on the right track, you're going to get run over if you just sit there, because the next train coming is going to plow you over. So we have to work to constantly improve. This person goes to trade shows and they go to conferences. Okay, so maybe I'm preaching to the choir at this point. But they attend events. They attend seminars with the right attitude. I have a friend who has borrowed the concept of the postcard that I have shared with you. If you notice that the first question on there, this is the one my friend changed. My first question says, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being superior, this presentation was a... Okay, by the way, the answer is 10, just in case you weren't sure. The answer was 10 on this one. But my friend adds a second question to it. He says, on a scale of 1 to 10, with a 10 being superior, my attitude coming to this school today was a... And it's his belief, and I will agree with him, that if you walk in the door with a 5 attitude, which is, okay, fine, prove something to me, okay, teach me something, you're probably going to see a 5 lesson. But if you walk up with a 10 attitude that says, I'm here to find something out of here, one little tidbit. Amazing that the better businesses don't walk out of a class like this with 10, 15, 20 things to do. They pick up one little tidbit because if nothing else, what they find is the majority of the class is only a confirmation. It's a reaffirmation of what it is they are already doing, that what they have been doing is correct. They are on the right path, and it has them approach it with a renewed vigor to say, I continue on where I'm going. I know I'm headed in the right direction. They are active in community associations. They're active in all their trade associations because this is where the winners go. I don't know where the whiners go, but they do not show up at this place. They seem to wander off. But they go to these organizations and they sit with other people and they learn neat ideas from them. They have a staff that uses, and their staff completes a to-do list because what happens is that when you go to one of these type of events and you pick up ideas and you see things, we need to do this, we need to do this, and we need to do this, and they take it back to everyone back at their shop and they say, here's what I have learned, here's what we need to do. In our shop, one of the things was the staff learned that when Tom was leaving to go to an event, you better be cleaning up the list. Your list had better be fairly well empty, because you could rest assured if I didn't call you while I was away with what I had found on the first day, well, on the first day that I was back, I had plenty of stuff. Okay, let me show you all the neat things that I think we need to do. And who amongst us is going to pick up the ball and run this? Notice that it says they have and they complete. That means they get it done, a to-do list. And that everyone in the business is engaged. Getting everything you can out of everything you've got, and one of my favorites, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you have read this book, go get it on CD and listen to Covey tell you the stories firsthand. And listen to the concept. It's a very reinvigorating book to get you excited about doing things. How many stars do you rate, and what do you need to do, and what would be your deadline? For point number 6. Point number 7 says, we recognize in a 5-star business that the customer is our most valuable asset. The customer is the most valuable thing we have out there. One of my mentors, a guy by the name of Jack Rice, used to always say, never forget a customer, but never let a customer forget you. Never let that customer forget who you are and what it is that you do. How can we do things? What do we need to do? Number 1, my employees are unique. I did not say weirdos. I said my employees are very unique individuals. They bring unique talents to the table. They bring very unique talents to the table of what they do. One of the things I would suggest maybe taking a look at is the next time you're hiring someone, instead of hiring someone who has great golf skills or knows the industry well, hire someone who's got a great personality and then consider teaching them the rest of it. I don't know how to teach the right personality. You know, you give me someone who's 27 years old, and if he's got the wrong attitude, I just don't know how to outdo 27 years, and I definitely do not have 27 years of patience to wait to get it changed. But you give me someone who walks in the door and just enjoys being with people right off the bat, and I'll teach them the rest of it. I'll teach them everything else that's there. If you don't agree with me, I ask the question, well then, how's the old style working for you? Other people sell products. We transform folks. I'm looking to transform people to where they become lovers of this sport. That's my job. I cannot sit there and rely upon the Golf Channel or something else to do it. It begins when that person comes, and just the phone call. The phone call to my shop, They're walking in the door and they have to see that I am madly in love with this and I'm having a good time, I am enjoying this. You do understand that we are totally non-essential. While we would have to go off and find something new today, if every golf course in the world were turned into cornfields tomorrow morning, the world would continue to go on just fine. We are here to help people relax, to help people to enjoy. My employees make decisions. I'm amazed. Well, quick example like this. You hand an employee the keys to the store. You ever think how much inventory is in the building? You ever think how much all the fixtures are worth to you? Do you think about, if you look at the balance sheet, the total assets of your business? And you give that key to somebody to let them come in and open the place or close it, and then you still turn right around, and when a customer brings something back and the employee walks up to you and asks you, what should I do? And if they were to take the product as a whole and throw it in the trash can, it's $10 that you're making a $10 decision. Now, you gave them a key to the front of the building, and there's a couple of $100,000 in here. You trust them with a couple of $100,000, but when it comes to a $10 decision, you got to make it. I do not understand that concept. I know definitely that I did not get into the family business because I wanted to stand around and make $10 decisions all day long. If I hired you and I trust you with the key, if you have come to Orlando, Florida, and there's someone there who is running the shop today without you, and when you go back, it's still open, why, pray tell, when you are back, does it all of a sudden have to revert to where we have to make all the decisions again? Our employees remember who our customers are. The biggest thing we remember is that they are the boss. My customer is the boss. Is the customer always right? Absolutely not. Have I fired customers? Absolutely. But I realize that the most important thing walking in the door is my customer. My father used to tell people this: there is a sure way to get hurt in this store, physically injured in this store. And he says, and here's the way to get injured. You are standing here talking to me, and the door opens and a customer walks in. And you continue to stand here and talk to me and ignore the customer. I will hurt you, knocking you down to get to that customer. Doesn't mean he's going to jump on him in a heartbeat. He says, there's only one thing that you could tell me that's more important than the customer walking in the door. And someone would say, oh, well, what's that? And you go, store's on fire. If you don't have that message for me, then anything you have is totally unimportant, because there is our paycheck walking in the door. I remember my customers and the value they place on me. What would I read? The Experience Economy by Pine and Gilmore. This is a phenomenal book. And Raving Fans by Ken Blanchard. My favorite of all of his writings, Raving Fans by Ken Blanchard. How many stars does your business rate? What do you need to do, and what would be your deadline? Point number 8. Point number 8 starts out with saying they realize that they are crucial to the success of the business. Let me read this quick quotation for you. The credit belongs to those people who are actually in the arena, who know the great enthusiasms, the great devotions to a worthy cause, who at best know the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst fail while daring greatly, so that their place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory or defeat, said by Theodore Roosevelt. I have a close friend who's in his mid-50s. He has longed for 30-some-odd years that he wants to run a business. He can't quite pull the trigger. He's been too comfortable forever working for somebody else, and every once in a while he just kind of reaches out and he tastes it and thinks that's what he wants to do. And he realizes that he's closer to retirement at this point, but this is what I want to do. He's tried so many things. At one point, he used to sell used golf balls to stores. Created his own little route, had a guy who was out diving the ponds, cleaning them. He had his daughters helping him bag them, doing all these things. And he wants so bad to taste it of running his own business. And he can't quite pull the trigger. It is my belief that to a person who owns and manages their own business, that is absolutely the bravest thing that any person can do. Because you got everything you own laying out there on the line. Everything. There is no promise of a paycheck tomorrow. All you can do is say, I get up and I go out and I take my best shot at it. To me, that's the bravest person out there. So what should I do? Number one, this person is an optimist. This person has this enthusiasm, this love for what they do. This person takes all the credit for success and all the blame for the failure. I say, how was business for last year? They never say, oh, we were lucky. They were not lucky, they were good. Business went well because we planned it that way. And if they say business was bad and they know why, it says, I screwed up. I was not paying attention to this. I failed at this one. It's my fault that it did not go well. But you know what? I know we're going to be better this year because I've learned from my mistakes. That's the enthusiasm. They have a can-do attitude. In my office, there's a little plaque someone gave to me. I'm told it was originally a Walt Disney quote. It says, it is kind of fun to do the impossible. It is kind of fun to do the impossible. I had to add to it because I've had a lot of experience with those people out there who say you can't do things. You know who I'm talking about? We refer to them as the emotional vampires. Anyone work with someone here who says, oh, that'll never work, oh, we can't do this, and that type of stuff? Those are emotional vampires. We look to drive the wooden stake through the heart, and this is how you do it. Where it says, it's kind of fun to do the impossible because it annoys the hell out of those who say it can't be done. I find that when you do that, it's like rubbing it in their nose and they just want to go away. And hopefully they go away and work for your competitor someplace else and let them deal with them. This person reads books. On my website, I will show you that we keep a long list of books suggest you read. This person knows how to stay focused and they execute their plans. You ever known someone, this is this year's plan and this is this year's plan and this is my theme for this year, but that's not the theme for last year. Now that the calendar's over, for some reason we think it just makes everything go away. No, they stay focused on where they're going and they execute the plan. It may just not happen exactly when they had in plan to happen, but they do execute it. The list of books on our website gets longer and longer simply because people come up and write down and hand me little pieces of paper. Oh, here's a good book. You ought to read this one. I'll gladly accept them. I just need to forewarn you. I was counting the list yesterday before I headed over here. It's at 43 right now. If I can get one book read a month, I can take the next book for somewhere about 2010. They all look like good books, and it just, you wish you could. But I also, someone asked, as I look on the website, there are little double stars next to some of them. Those are my favorites, ones I suggest you read first. Books that you might want to read: The Process of Excelling and The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Process of Excelling, the second book, The E-Myth, which was by Michael Gerber. How many stars? And this may need to be changed. Maybe what you need to say is, how many stars do you rate? What do you need to do, and what would be your deadlines? Point number 9, they demonstrate, as the owner or manager of a 5-star business, that they're truly enjoying what it is that they do. Another famous philosopher once said, keep a smile on your face and all the world will wonder what you're up to. That was Snoopy. This person communicates with their staff. They appreciate and they enjoy their customers. They appreciate and enjoy their staff. Yet understand they are not responsible for everyone. I sold the family store in 1997. The question was, do you miss your store? And the answer is no, absolutely not. It was a building. It was merchandise. That's all it was. I miss my employees. They are very close to me. There is one who I see every so often, and when I don't see him for a couple of weeks, I know where he hangs out. He's retired at a Starbucks, and I ask everyone I see that, hey, where's Bob? Have you seen Bob lately? Bob okay? What's going on with Bob? I just want to know where he is and what he's doing. Another one had retired and came back to life as an artist and has a neat little art gallery nearby. Same thing with my customers. My customers were my friends. I enjoyed my customers. That's the reason I got up. It's the reason I got into retailing, because my grandfather's name was Buster Brown. He was a pretty good retailer. But the reason I got into retailing was because I watched people who wanted to talk to my grandfather, and I thought, this is neat. They would come walking in the store and go, hey, Mr. Brown. My grandfather would go, hi, neighbor. And that's all I wanted to do, is just talk to people, Because why do all these people want to talk to my grandpa? Why do all these people want to talk to my dad? This must be really neat. I like this. And people who consider them to be their friends. Books to read. Laugh and Grow Rich. One of the authors of this book will be here tomorrow. His name is Rick Siegel. Very funny, very interesting speaker. Rick Siegel and Darren LaCroix wrote Laugh and Grow Rich. And Fish. Fish is a good place to start off reading books. How many do you rate? And what do you need to do? What would be your deadlines? Point number 10. They know how to go the distance. This person knows how to go the distance. This is not a one-day event. Another great president once said, nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not, for the world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. Calvin Coolidge. This is not a one-time achievement. If last year was your best year ever, then what we're out to do this year is to do something better. We're always looking to improve off what we're doing. I do not revel in the good old days. When I come to shows like this, and I see someone bringing a little kid, like 5 or 6 years old, I see myself as a kid, 5 or 6 years old, and going to trade shows years and years ago. And as compared to thinking that that was the good old days, I think about this kid's going to grow up and going to be in the industry and be a successful business person. And as this kid becomes a successful business person, he's going to tell someone somewhere down life's line about how his dad used to take him to the show in Orlando and how they had a great time. And they're going to say, when was this? And he says, oh, somewhere back around 06. You were alive back then? My gosh, you've been in this industry forever. Yeah, those were the good old days. Today is the good old day, if you just decide it's the good old day. I do not try to get all the work done in one day. There was a person in this class here in Orlando a couple of years ago, and he made the comment to me, one that I shall never forget, and it was to say, gee, I wish I'd heard you make this point. Don't try to get all the work done in one day. I wish I'd heard you say that about 2 years before I heard it. He says, it's been kind of tough. We have absolutely struggled to make it. But I kept saying I'd pour myself in and pour myself and pour myself in. He said, if I'd slowed down a little bit, he says, maybe I might still be married. Anybody here ever have an employee that brought the troubles to work? Okay, and those of you who did not raise your hand either have no employees or you don't understand the question. Okay, because it happens all the time. Have you not wanted to say to the person, this is the threshold to the door, and when you come into work, leave your problems out there in the parking lot, right? Because if you don't leave the problems out there in the parking lot, you're going to have another problem. It's called unemployment. And then you have lots of time to worry about all your problems. So here's the question that I pose back to you. If that is true, when it comes time at the end of the day for you to close up and go away, you turn the key, you open the door, you go out, you lock it back. If that threshold is good for your employees, why isn't that threshold good for you? If it's good for them to leave their problems outside, why shouldn't you take and leave the business problems on the inside? Let it go another day. So what would you might want to read? Who Moved My Cheese? And everyone's got to read an Anthony Robbins book sometime in their life, so here it is, Awaken the Giant Within. I had to suggest to them, how many stars do you rate? And what would you need to do, and what would be your deadlines? So a very common comment I get is to say, my gosh, Shay, I mean, that's a whole lot of stuff. Where do I go first? I would suggest picking out 1, 2, and 3. Take it slowly. If you do something about it today, you're one step closer. And tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. The question simply is this in the future for you? To go home, I have 4 closing points to share with you. On the back of your presentation notes, you will see that I have written an article on this very topic. I would invite you to read this. It uses an analogy of a car, a couple of cars, and comparing the car's spokes, their wheels, their tires, to aspects of a business and asking you the question, does your business have a flat tire? If you enjoy that article, please come up and wander around our website. There's about 90 other articles up there, and you can take and help yourself to all of them. They are there. Please feel free to print them, pass them around to your comrades. You do not have to ask for permission. It's nice to hear from you, but you don't have to have my permission to take and duplicate them. The page before the presentation notes, if you're very serious about looking at some stuff geared specifically to small business, I left you an order form. Right? I will have a couple of the books with me for later on. We're getting ready to change the room right quick for another session, but I will have them available later on, and you can save about 20%. If you wait to go to the website, you're going to pay full price and pay postage on top of it. Point number 3, if you want me to send you your postcard, all you got to do is just drop it right up here. Just plop it down. Antonio will help me. He'll take care of this. Just add them to the mess. And the last item, I have some posters up here I'd be glad to share with you. I thought Calvin Coolidge's comment was pretty good. Thought it was pretty sharp. I have printed up here on a poster, and if you would like to have a copy of it, then just please come right up and help yourself to it. Hang it over your desk, and let that be a reminder to you of what it takes to be a 5-star business. Thank you for your time. I'm glad you were here.